Well, welcome to the Verizon Women Influencing Business Leadership Series. I'm Ingrid Reckard, Senior Vice President with Bank of America, and it's my pleasure to serve as the co-chair of the 2020 Women Influencing Business Committee for the Greater North Fulton Chamber. Thank you for joining us for this virtual event. Before we get to today's program, I want to recognize and thank our Women Influencing Business naming sponsor. I'd like to call on Terry Pugh, Managing Partner of Business Sales for Verizon, for sponsor remarks.
Hey, thanks, Ingrid. I appreciate that. So on behalf of Verizon, I want to welcome you all to the Women Influencing Business event today. Thank you to the Greater North Fulton County Chamber for putting this event together. It is our honor to really invest in this program. And at Verizon, we're committed to taking a strong position on women empowering women. Basically, personally for me, I've been with Verizon for 24 years. It's been an amazing career in this crazy and ever-changing world of technology that we live in. And with all that change, it still astounds me that at Verizon, one thing has really never changed. And for 20 years, our guiding principles and our daily values and strategies have been driven around what we call our Verizon credo. So that strategy has been in place and was written by our first CEO of wireless, Denny Striegel, and it's never changed. I want to read you two quotes from that credo. We embrace diversity and personal development, not only because it's the right thing to do, but also because it's smart business. We are good corporate citizens. We share our success with the community to make the world in which we work better than it was yesterday. So it's not a new concept to us. It's not an action item for us. Development, diversity, and inclusion are at the core of our business, and we know it's our social responsibility to share our success with the community. So that's why we're here. I'm truly blessed to have grown my career in this type of environment with a business that has those types of principles. And I was a founding member and a graduate of a women's development program that we affectionately call WOW. And WOW started as a grassroots effort in the state of Georgia 10 years ago. And we called it Women on the Way. And then that program grew to a national program, and WOW became Women of Wireless. And then in 2019, it became our international program across our entire scope of business globally, and it became Women of the World. So that's pretty exciting. It's a development program that increases confidence and skills and allows women to become their true authentic self and to be able to apply these principles to growing their career. But what I love about it is it didn't matter what year you attended or what year you graduated this 7-month program. The challenge at graduation has always been the same, and that is to find your voice as women, share what you learn, carve your path forward to give back to other women inside and outside of Verizon. So that's why we're here. I encourage you to attend all 4 of the Women Influencing Business events, and I challenge you to share what you learn, to find your voice, and to carve your path forward to give back to our community. We all have the power to make our businesses and community better. So let's move forward together and make a positive impact. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you again, Terry. We appreciate Verizon's support of our chamber as the 2020 Women Influencing Business naming sponsor. The chamber is able to offer great events like today's session due to the generous support of our sponsors. Thank you to today's presenting sponsor, LexisNexis Risk Solutions, and our gold sponsor, Synovus. We appreciate the tremendous investment of these companies in our chamber and their continued support of women influencing business events. Now, on to our program. It's my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Christy Cross with Cozy Comfy. Christy established the company in 2008 to give back to community-based programs. At that time, the organization was especially focused on families and children involved in adoption and foster care. As the company enters its 13th year, Cozy Comfy has expanded, creating jobs for people throughout our community and beyond that instill a sense of purpose and passion. They are on track to have given over $2.5 million to nonprofits and grassroots organizations by the end of this year. Christy is a two-time recipient of the Chamber's Business Person of Excellence Award and is a proud member of the Chamber's Chairman's Circle. Christy, thank you so much for being with us today to talk about your unique experience as a small business owner supporting nonprofits.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. Good morning, ladies. I hope every one of you are having a fantastic morning or start to your day. Ingrid, your kind words are super, super sweet. Thank you. And thank you to the Greater North Fulton Chamber for having me moderate this panel this morning. The topics today are truly near and dear to my heart. Like, this is a subject that is super near and dear to me. I would like to share just a brief history about my experience with nonprofit organizations, how my own company was established. I'm a mother of 7 children, so I'm 3 of which are adopted. I have a super, super busy day to day. I did not plan on starting a company 13 years ago. I just wanted to volunteer and help. I wanted to help children who were in foster care and other adopted families that were like my own. Fast forward a few years, little did I know, I'd be able to make a difference in so many other people's lives along the way. I'm not an expert in breast cancer research. I'm not an expert in building an orphanage in another country, or exactly what may be required to support women and their families in a situation that's certainly not an ideal situation. What I can tell you is that my team and I, we are experts in providing support. We're experts in raising funds and helping these organizations do what they do best. And that's helping others ultimately. I'm pleased to be here today, and I know you guys will enjoy our impressive lineup of women on today's panel. These are women who make a difference. They make a difference in everyday lives of other people. I know that their stories will encourage each of us through examples of how we can all help our communities in supporting local nonprofits. I want to thank them all for joining us and sharing their inspiring stories with us today. With that, I'm going to start with our first panelist, Frida Hardage. She is the director of Foundation Services for Northside Hospital. Frida serves as the first MARTA chair from North Fulton. She is a board member emeritus of the Drake House, and the Greater North Fulton Chamber of Commerce have served on the chair of each. She's also served with distinction on the North Fulton Poverty Task Force, the Johns Creek Community Association, the YMCA High Harbor Board, and Windward Rotary. Frida, I will tell you, when I look at all of the things that you've done in our community, it's amazing. I am completely impressed and in awe by you. I know you and I have had the opportunity to meet personally, and I thoroughly enjoyed every conversation that we've had. Your service on so many different levels is amazing. Tell me this, what advice could you give women listening today on where they should start on a board and how they can serve when support a struggling nonprofit, because so many are struggling these days?
Right. Good morning, Christy, and thank you for those kind words. I kind of grew up in a very small town, and I think that's how I got my start, was because in my hometown of less than 10,000 people with one high school, you know, 2 elementary schools. Everybody knew everybody. So when anything happened, the whole community jumped in to help. And so I grew up with that type of upbringing. And so as I came into, you know, moving to the big town of Atlanta over the course of years, I just felt like that I still needed to do that. And so I tried to get involved in my community. I started with my schools back when the kids were in school, and, you know, kind of worked up to knowing people and people asking me to help with other things. But, you know, in looking in today's environment and what women are always looking for other opportunities, I tell you that you have to kind of dig deep and look at what your passion is. So many opportunities out there right now, but it's a passion, and it has to meet your beliefs and what you want to accomplish. And I say that because there's, as you look at these opportunities that are before us today, sometimes your companies help support that as well. And so that gives you an opportunity, if you work for some of the bigger companies, that they will also help support you. And so you may have to look at your company's mission. But when you're out trying to find your passion, whatever that would be, please think about, look at the mission of what you, and make sure that your mission and your philosophy matches the nonprofit's mission and philosophies. And I think that's important. And not only, you know, anybody can hand up a piece of paper and say, here's our mission, but ask them how they're actually fulfilling their mission, you know, because I think that's important. What do you do to try to do what you say you do on paper? And, you know, you can talk to board members that are currently on there or have been on there in the past. You can look at the finances, you know, and I say that carefully with finances, because sometimes you need to be on that not-for-profit board because they need your help because their finances aren't good. I'm not saying they have to be good to get on the board. Just know what you're getting yourself into, because you're going to have to help. If you are a true board member, you're going to have to help with fundraising. You're going to have to help with those capital programs, and you're going to need to get your hands dirty. If you don't, if that's not what you have in mind, you're probably not ready to be on a board. That's just my personal opinion. And then you got to also know I think the people that are on boards, because, you know, you got to mesh with the other board members. You've got to be able to get along with them and all work together and, you know, come in and try to all accomplish whatever the goal is. So, you know, look at those angles, make sure, you know, start small if it's something that you've never done before. But, you know, and I say this to everybody, I say it to my children all the time, because my son just recently started working for Home Depot, and, you know, they have a big philanthropy program there, and he has to give so many hours per year. And I'm like, you only do it one way. You do it the right way. If you're going to commit that you're going to be somewhere and you're going to do something, then please do it. They're relying on you. They need your assistance, and you fill the void that they created. And at the same time, I don't want anybody to feel like that it's easy. It's not. If you're really committed to a project and give your all, it takes time. And at the end, though, everybody wins. The nonprofit wins, the community wins, everybody does. So we are so blessed in North Fulton to have a lot of people that give of their time, and agencies, and we're just I'm so happy to live in this community. It's probably, when you go out in the United States and look, we're rare to have what we have here. But that being said, hopefully that, I know there may be some questions, but that was just kind of my overall opinion about what you need to think about if you're interested in joining a board.
Awesome, Frida. Thank you so much for sharing your story and some bits and pieces of your experience. I know that nowhere near scratches the surface and all the things and all the knowledge that you have.
I'm happy to answer any other questions that may come up. I'm happy to do that.
That is wonderful. Well, I know that you're part of the 2004 leadership of nonprofit Fulton class, whose community project actually became the Drake House. The Drake House is a Roswell-based nonprofit serving homeless mothers and children. I love that. I have also in my past helped battered women's shelters and so forth. And so, of course, that is always, and children are very near to my heart as well. But our next panelist now leads this great organization, the Drake House. I'd like to welcome Misha Mason. She is the executive director of the Drake House. Nisha brings a very diverse skill set to her current nonprofit role. She has over 20 years of experience in both the public and the private sectors. Nisha, you recently coordinated a highly successful fundraiser for the Drake House in the middle of this crazy time right now. So tell us, how are you able to secure volunteers and then financial support? And tell us how this fundraiser became such a great success.
Well, first, let me say thank you guys for including me on this panel. Thank you to Greater North Fulton Chamber for this opportunity and for acknowledging the great success of our 16th annual Miss Mary's Ice Cream Crankin' and our first ever drive-through event. I think that I definitely will credit the strong foundation of the Drake House. You know, since I've joined this organization, I have to echo Frida's sentiments in that we live in a great community of North Fulton with a lot of people who want to get involved and who want to be a part of the work and helping, other members of the community. And as a recipient of, with Frida being on our board, I can definitely say that she walks the walk. So all of the things that she said are required for successful board participation are exactly the things that our board does and exactly the foundation of how we were able to have hold a traditional event that we've had for the last 15 years. And this year being COVID, we were not going to let it stop us. So we just had to kind of reevaluate and rethink how we could approach this and bring that sense of community that is at the core of this event and do so safely in the time of COVID. So thanks to our development director, Megan Riddle, and our volunteer services director, Kimberly Jackson, for their vision and their creativity. They came up with the idea of doing a drive-through event. It satisfied the ability for us to hold our place at the end of August for bringing the community homemade ice cream and bringing everybody together in a celebratory sort of way and being able to celebrate all of those things that make this great North Fulton community wonderful and bringing us together, but would do so safely. And fortunately, we have a committee, a longstanding committee that has been working on behalf of this event for just about all the 16 years that it's been in place. And those ladies are absolutely committed and they know exactly who to call to get things done. And so they called upon the Roswell chapter of NCL mother-daughter teams to come in and they decorated our event with their pink shirts and cheery smiles and festive attitudes. And so they were our runners running ice cream back and forth to the cars. And we're so grateful for the Milton chapter of NCL who made our balloon arches that kind of created the fun festivities for the parade going out. And our young advisory council, they came on board and made it fun for the cars. One of our former board members, Julia Johnson, dressed up in a Spider-Man suit in 90-degree weather in a hot August day and greeted everybody as they came through. And what we really found was it's something that because we seized the opportunity to do something different in this time, it made it so that we could add value to the people who normally have participated, and we saw some that maybe normally wouldn't have been able to. So we now have an element that we will add to our events going forward. And we certainly, all of the community partnerships that have been established and maintained throughout the years, thanks to First Baptist Roswell, we were able to host the event on their campus, which was perfect for the cars to drive through and just making it festive. So I think what made this event so wonderful and the ability for us to be able to get the volunteers that we got really was it was less about it being a fundraiser and more about it being an opportunity for us to give back to the community that has so richly supports us. And in turn, they continue that level of support. We're grateful for Turf Masters for being our title sponsor. They led the way to all of the other sponsors coming on board, Karen Lee and Associates. So I think that the success of this event really is just a testament to the longstanding support that this community has provided for the Drake House. And I am just so grateful and blessed to be a part and for us to be a recipient. So I think that there were all the right ingredients in place prior to pre-COVID for this to be successful. And really what it took was the courage and the vision to continue and try something new. And I attribute that to our team, our committee members, and all of our crankers and longtime supporters. We couldn't have done it without them. So it was definitely a joint effort.
Wonderful, Nisha. Thank you so much for sharing all of that information. That's a tremendous amount of help for all of us women in business. So that's amazing. You know, fundraising and volunteers, they really are two of the staples for any nonprofit organization. And our next panelist, Holly York, she is all about power of volunteers. Holly is the executive director of North Fulton Community Charities. She is only the second individual to hold that title, having previously served in as nonprofit director of development. Her time at North Fulton Community Charities, she's led the development team and overseeing marketing, fundraising, in addition to cultivating partnerships within our community, and working with the board of directors and management team on strategic planning. Holly, tell us about the volunteers you work with at North Community Charities.
So one of the things, you asked to talk about, social responsibility. Since North Fulton Community Charities is just over 37 years old, we have a long history of volunteers that have been able to support us. So in any given year, we are looking at 100,000 volunteer hours. It takes about 200 regular volunteers in our food pantry to serve almost 10,000 individuals, which is a totally different number this year. That equates to 48 full-time employees. So that is a lot of work that gets done. So volunteers are the lifeblood of not-for-profit organizations. That's how the work gets done. That's how organizations are actually started. These organizations, the Drake House, North Fulton Community Charities, Family Promise, Star House, all of these wonderful North Fulton-based agencies started because a volunteer probably had a vision and brought people on board. Volunteers come in many varieties, but I will point out to the women that women do volunteer at higher rates than men. And that is probably just for traditional ways. The social responsibility, usually we have a little bit more time, but we work, with groups like Women in Business, we're able to connect. So women like Frida started in her schools. Many of us start in the school system and want to see our community better. So volunteers are a way to make the community better, and we can connect resources to making the whole community better. The resources come in many forms. It comes in with volunteers that want to connect to a mission. And Frida mentioned that connecting to a mission is important, but there are other reasons that people volunteer. They volunteer because they want to have a community. They want to meet and be with other women. It might not be, and they're invited by other women into a volunteer opportunity. 42% of the people that join in any organization volunteer are asked by somebody else. So we are doing it as a part of a community, and we're building companionship. But the volunteers are also involved in trying to raise the agency's performance. They want to see the agency perform. They also want to support individuals in their community. And with agencies such as the one as the Drake House and North Fulton Community Charities, we're keeping families housed. Very basic needs. When I say it's an easy sell, especially in times of COVID. Volunteers also come to build skills. Volunteers, this is something that is important for women to know. And I'm going to do a shout out to Frida, because it's been almost 10 years when Frida has been met with me, and she recognized that my volunteer experience was really just, I thought it was, I'm just a volunteer. I don't have, they're not real skills, but she was able to point out to me, says, no, Holly, you're managing a budget of, $300,000. You're managing volunteers and motivating people. So volunteers, you can build real life skills that translate into the community. So advice to women who say, oh, I'm just a volunteer, or I'm only working on the PTA, I only am, doing this little fundraiser. You're managing assets, you're managing people. You are collaborating. So you need to, as a volunteer, think about these things, because don't diminish your volunteer work, and don't diminish anything that helps you connect your community and to fulfill your own personal mission. Whether that is if you do it in a group, because I know groups like Verizon and Bank of America, they show up on our campus. They are corporate social responsibility. They want to help. They want to do food drives. And that helps advance their mission through volunteers. But it also is that person who wants to work our intake desk, every Friday morning, and has been there since 1983, and we have a lot of those volunteers. But it's just, there's situational volunteering, and great opportunities to learn and connect individually. There are great opportunities to work in groups. And then that also leads, that will go right into, if you have a passion and you are involved in volunteering, you can get involved in leadership. You can be invited to be on the board. Perspectives from all different areas, all different ages, all different backgrounds, is very important to advance the mission of any agency. So being a volunteer is not just being, I'm just a volunteer, I'm not paid. It is absolutely important. Frida, I don't think you're paid for MARTA, but it is a volunteer job. We take it seriously when we have our board chairs, and they are committed to making sure that we sustain ourselves and do what we say we're going to do, and we're transparent. Volunteers are your voice in the community. Nisha talked about her group of volunteers that have been around since day one. In fact, I worked with them myself. They are committed to making you successful. They're your voice in the community. So to diminish the amount of work that happens when it comes to volunteers, the reach that they have within the community and the reach they have to keep you sustained is amazing. I'm fortunate that I had some great women to give me advice on how to turn my volunteer position into a career that I also got to stop at the Drake House. I'm very fortunate that Frida pulled me into that. So I commend everybody here on the call, but I challenge everyone to look at how they volunteer, because your time is valuable, and you want to give your time and your talent, especially when if you don't have treasure. Early on, when I was in my early 20s, I was challenged every week, give us your time and talent and your treasure. And I said, I don't have any treasure. I'm paying off student debt and I'm poor, but it was a way for me to get connected to the community. And it was a way for me to feel like I was giving back when I felt like I couldn't give financially. So volunteering is a huge part of what we can do as a community to advance everyone and to connect with one another and to build skills.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you, Holly, so much for your input there. I can speak from my own perspective that it takes a lot of different hands to carry heavy loads sometimes, and to really make a difference in all of the communities. And we all have things that are very near and dear to our hearts. And some people have many, which is absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing that. I know the importance. I'm sure that our audience may have a few questions, but before I hand everything over, I'd like to leave all of our women in business and our volunteers with one thought. There was a sports broadcaster recently that made a comment. Her name is Joy Taylor, and my thoughts are very similar to hers, and they align, especially being a woman in business. Might we sort of think about that just for a second? This next point that I have, it's what her statement was, and again, this really, really resonated with me, but we cannot expect progress and perfection at the same time. So if you think about that for a second, we cannot expect progress and perfection at the same time. I'd like to add that if we're seeking progress, we're all winning. If we think we're perfect, we're not seeking progress. It definitely gives you something to think about. I think that all of the ladies on our panel today have made such a tremendous difference in the lives of others. My hope for each of you women in business that are on the call today, I hope that you guys keep winning. I hope that you volunteer and that you do your part. And together, I really true that we can each make a difference. Thank you again to the Chamber for allowing me to have the opportunity to even be a part of these wonderful ladies in our community. Each of you are absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing your stories. I'd like to personally say that to you. So thank you all for your time. But now I would like to hand everything over to the Greater North Fulton Chamber of Commerce. She's the president. She is definitely a leader in our community. She's a fantastic woman in business, and she's also, I'm happy and proud to say, a personal friend. May I introduce Callie Boatwright? She'll kick off any Q&A. Should we have some time left?
Thank you, Christy. I appreciate you moderating for us this morning. It's obviously still morning. I wanted to start us off with some of the questions that have been coming through the chat box, and y'all continue to do that. We want to get as many of these answered as possible. Our first question is for Frida. Frida, you have been vetted by many boards, obviously, in your volunteer time. Could you share maybe a little bit about the vetting process, how that works, and what someone could expect with a large nonprofit versus a small nonprofit through that process?
Well, there's a couple different ways to get vetted. Sometimes you have an interest and you might reach out to that board, or that board might reach out to you. As Holly mentioned earlier, half of people that get involved because another board member may reach out and say, you would be perfect for this board. So I think it goes a couple different ways, but most of our boards today, and Nisha and Holly help me with this, but we have an interview process. We have an application process. So it gives you an opportunity to apply and say what, your areas of concern are. And then there are also are interviews so that they have the opportunity to discuss and make sure they get the boards that have the philosophies that kind of mismatch and work well together. So that's my vetting process has perhaps over the years been a little different because I've been around for a while. So, but I do know that for someone new that would be going into a board and for the first time, there would be a process in place for you to be able to be interviewed and for you to interview the board.
That's great. Holly and Nisha, do both of you have a process in place per the conversation?
Well, Callie experienced our vetting process just recently. I think the other piece of the getting on a board is that you need to interview the board as well. Do you have the time? Is it in a time of your life or their life cycle that you can give? So for example,
Right.
And you're in the middle of a huge capital campaign and you're a new, you have a new promotion at your office and it's not going to match up. That might not be the board that you need to be on. I think it's very important and be realistic. And people do turn down, great board positions. And it's also, is the board in a place where your talent is needed right now? If they're overrun with bankers on the board and you're a banker, it's not personal. It's just they might need a lawyer. I don't know. I can't believe I said a lawyer, but it's just important to look at the balance. It's a matching process as well.
The matching of skill sets. Nisha, how about you?
I wholeheartedly agree, and Holly, I echo that completely. We definitely, our prospective board members are nominated by our existing board members, and I think that that is such a critical point in that you do have to make sure that it is a right fit. The board itself is a right fit for you, and the best way to do that is to talk to the other board members, see what is, again, looking at the skill set that you bring to the table, and really thinking through how can I contribute. How can I, because that's what's so fulfilling about the board service is when you're able to contribute to the mission that you so want to be a part of. So thinking through that contribution during that vetting process, I think is key and will really lead to a most rewarding board experience.
Thank you. Yeah. And as a nonprofit, the Chamber, of course, being a 501c6 nonprofit as well, we too have a vetting process. Just to weigh in on that, we're actually, today is the last day of our 10-day vetting process for our board nominees. But it's interesting, like you ladies, I have an entire rubric that we set up that based on the size of a business and the type of the business and the type of the skill sets. And so because you want to make sure that you've got great diversity on your board. And that means diversity of thought as well. If everybody thinks the same, then you're not going to get a great vetting.
Absolutely.
So I think that plays in really well, no matter what board you're looking at. My next question, I had to smile when I read it. And just so you know, it is from our chairman of the board, Alan Najar, who is on this call. I know, right? I thought that was awesome. He is on everything.
Way to go, Alan.
He takes board service very seriously. So I do want to give him a shout out. Now, the reason I smiled about this is because I've always worked for nonprofit organizations my entire career. And so with a husband and children, my husband jokingly says he's always been the chamber husband because he gets enlisted for service, from carrying things to showing up at things. My children used to come to the office and answer phones. I mean, it's for everybody. So Alan's question: what is your advice to younger women with families on how to balance personal and professional lives, and spouse management suggestions in order to get them to do their part? So I think that's a great question, because you want to balance those things. Anybody want to try to answer that?
Well, I tell everybody to start in the shallow end and don't jump off in the deep end.
Oh, I love
I
that.
think that you take small steps. Everybody doesn't have to be the chief. You can be an Indian to start with, So find something that you think you're passionate about and take a small step and make sure that fits what you need for your family, for your home. And then, as times change and your children get older, or, those husbands go, do their own thing and go play golf, and you've got more time on their hands, then you might take a larger role. But it doesn't mean that the minute you commit to it that you're committing to be the chair next year and everything that goes with it. You can take small steps and still be very important and contribute.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think that as you go along that journey, definitely finding opportunities to involve your family, I think is really important. I mean, it's important for your children to see the ways in which you give back to your community, and how and all of those different elements that are a part of the community, and finding enjoyment in that give back. So I think that there's a lot of teachable moments, even as you are going from the shallow end, going into the deep. If there's opportunities to get your family involved, particularly for the kids, I think that is a great way to make it a full family experience. And as far as like spousal advice, I think my husband and I went through the same thing in the small town that we lived in. I was very involved in the community, and it was always like, oh, you're Mr. Mayor, you're Mr. And to be able to embrace the work that I was doing, that, and when you look at it from a community building perspective, you can find your place. So just giving them the opportunity to have that, to find their space and their place in the work that you're doing, I think is really important.
Absolutely.
But on that, I want to all of that is perfect, but I think part of it and what the chamber wants to do in connecting the women is also connecting us together to say it's hard for women to say no, or draw the line, because we're trying, this group is high achievers, and that is learning how to manage everything is, if you have that magic wand, I would really like you to give it to me. I think that high achieving women want to volunteer. They want to make a difference. They want to be leaders. They want to show their families. I follow a woman who was in the role for over 35 years. Her husband never was involved, and he very purposely, that was her job, here to support at home. But that you have to work that out between you and your family. It's hard to do. If it's your passion and not their passion, you should find a way to do something together. But it's also important to realize that your season of life, like Rita said, shallow end, there are baby steps. You don't have to take everything on, and you can take time off. your life situation will change. Volunteering will always be there for you.
Yeah. And there are seasons for it. So I think you're exactly right in that. All right, I'm going to do my best to combine 3 separate questions that all are very, very closely aligned. They all have to do with matchmaking between volunteers and boards. And so we've touched on it a little bit, but very specifically, how do folks who are looking to volunteer find out who's looking for board members? So we have several questions regarding that. So if there's a cause or a mission you're interested in, should you just call that nonprofit and ask if they're looking for volunteers, or would you recommend a program like a volunteer match as a place for people looking for good volunteers?
I actually have attempted to use volunteer match because I was looking to get into just reach other communities, didn't know what it was like. It's kind of like going on Indeed. You can get everybody or no one. I think my experience over the last decade has been the passion. The volunteer has to have the passion, and the more transparent. And as agencies have gotten better at their own websites and their volunteer process, it's easier and easier to connect. COVID has put an end to all of this because there's lots of safety protocols, and if you're working with children, you still have to have safety. So it's my experience is services can serve you if you are not really known, but working within a community to be invited in is more successful. Have a friend. I always say it's better in pairs. So that's what I would look to.
But you use both volunteer match as a service as well as within having.
Yeah, I have it. Yes, I have attempted to do that when I wanted to see how it worked.
Yeah. Yep. Nisha, how about you?
I think that, we've gotten some great volunteers that have just seen something about us, want to know more, and just picked up the phone, called, or, shot a email through our website where we want to know more information. I think that if you have found an organization that you believe in their mission, or just even want to know more about, want to get involved in, I think that's a great way to be able to just pick up the phone, shoot them a message directly, and they will plug you in. And so that you can learn more. If you decide to continue that volunteer relationship with that organization, great. If you decide, maybe I'll find something else. I do think volunteer match, I have actually signed myself up there in the past just to see, what opportunities are out there. I hadn't identified an organization that I wanted to participate in. So that was a great way for me to go out and get different experiences so that I could find one. But I think that if you have found an organization, or if there's an organization that has at least piqued your curiosity, nothing wrong with picking up the phone and having a conversation.
So the real answer here is there's no one right way.
Exactly.
If you're excited and passionate about something, then certainly an organization should have a spot for you if you're that interested in being part of it. So we have a very specific question about sort of what the nonprofits went through. And I'm going to try to keep y'all brief, which I know what mine went through, so I know I could be long-winded about it. The question is, could each of you give a summary about what your nonprofits went through and the impacts of women since the start of COVID?
Well, being an organization that serves single mothers specifically, obviously there was a lot of things that we went through. I will say this, that I think the biggest shift for us was fulfilling our mission during that shutdown when we were all sheltering in place and keeping our families safe. I know that for our moms, they felt a great sense of or a great desire to sort of wrap their children in that bubble to be able to keep their children safe. And so we needed to give them the assurance that their safety was our priority. They're in a point in their lives when they are in transition. They are transitioning from a place of homelessness and back to restoration. And to have that interrupted with all of the unknowns and the uncertainty of COVID can be very debilitating. And they still had a empowerment plan to work through. They still had steps to take in order to get back on their feet. And so for our program team, who, you know, I'm so grateful for having as they are, our program team are themselves going through all of the uncertainty and all of the different, you know, variables, the unknowns. But to be able to provide that level of security for our moms, to say that, you know, if we have to extend your time here, we'll extend your time. We have a career coach that worked very closely with our moms in helping them transition from being in the workplace to sometimes working from home. Some of our moms lost their jobs. Fortunately, we had employer partnerships in place where they were able to transition into teleworking jobs. So as you said, Kelly, I could go on and on, but I think at the core for us was providing that level of security and stability for our families that are already in such an unstable time, with that added layer of COVID, and still maintaining that level of stability and security. And so I feel very blessed that our program team was able to provide that level of support for our families, and we were able to continue to graduate families and move families in, all while remaining safe and keeping our families supported.
Very good point, Nisha. How about you, Holly?
Well, and I'm taking it as more of a personal, we are, you know, on the front lines, and Frida probably also knows that we were considered essential because we were providing food and financial assistance to keep families housed and fed. What our experience has been is that the effects of COVID hurt women disproportionately more than men, because they were in service jobs. They were in jobs when you're living paycheck to paycheck. You could be a cleaner, you could be a hairdresser. They were disproportionately affected because their jobs went away. In addition, essential workers who were trying to work, they were struggling with childcare. So we are seeing that women are burdened most often with childcare. And Nisha knows the statistics in North Fulton. You know, most likely someone who's, you know, about to be homeless or in poverty is a woman with about 2 children. And if they were not in school, they have not been in school, they're still not in school. Childcare has become the #1 barrier to getting back to work for the families. Even if they can go to work and the work is available, their children can't be left unattended. They're supposed to be online and in school. So coming up with a solution for that, Nisha and I have been on some calls with United Way. You know, how do we help women get back to work who are able to work but can't? And childcare, even without COVID, is challenging. It's costly, even at a rate that is discounted. So, you know, it's a concern, the community, and as a partner in the business world, is that businesses will not have people coming back to work in the service industry, you know, retail, restaurants, if they, you know, don't have support for their families. So women definitely more affected. They're the ones that were going out to getting food. They're also the ones that are more likely to ask for help in the community as well.
And I do want to give a shout out to YMCA, which I know did offer some childcare. So I want to make sure and do that as part of this, as another nonprofit, obviously.
Right.
Frida, I know people see Northside and see a large building and everything they have going on, but you are a nonprofit. Can you answer that question as well?
Well, I think that we have the same issue. If you think very similar to what both Nisha and Holly said, you know, on taking care of patients, but the caregivers themselves have children at home. And the doctors and the nurses and all the different healthcare workers are trying to manage working and taking care of their obligations to care for patients. There's a lot of health issues going on with people right now that are not COVID related, and we still need to address all those. And so, you know, to come up with the plan, there's the front line that's handling COVID, but there's another whole very important of people that are taking care of everyone that has a catastrophic diagnosis that's not COVID right now. Mm-hmm. And so just know that that is happening, and we're trying to figure out how to manage that. Northside Hospital has a child care center at the hospital. And so you're given priority to bring your children there so that you can come to work.
Thank you. And thank you for everything that your frontline workers have been doing during this entire pandemic. You know, it's interesting. We did a economic development and business impact survey, and the 2 answers that were given by Nisha and Holly and echoed by Frida were actually the top 2 answers from businesses. regarding how they could go back to work. And so those two were confidence, right? Customer confidence and the ability to be back, to Nisha's point. So having that layer of security and confidence to be able to do what they need to do. And then the second was childcare, which obviously is something that all of us, whether we're a business leader or an employee, are all dealing with it in our own way. So I think that's important to note. And I certainly appreciate all the businesses who have been so flexible during this time. We've got time probably for one more question. And we had one that was sent in advance. Both, Holly, you mentioned specifically, the volunteers having to move to a virtual engagement. Nisha, I know you've probably done some of that as well. How in the world, and I know nobody has the crystal ball, so you don't have the answer, but how have you been doing it? How are you keeping volunteers engaged virtually?
That was one of the first challenges, because the volunteers did not want to be not engaged in our work. It was really a health and safety concern, and as the leader of the organization, I'm responsible, I call it for the family. And a lot of the volunteers that we do see are, we're in a high risk group, and I, explaining to them their health. If they're not going to be healthy, we can't serve families. To keep them engaged for us was, you can organize a food drive, but you're not going to be able to pass out the food to the clients. You can flatten out bags for us to stay engaged. You can help us collect our backpack supplies. You can do your own fundraiser. You can help clean out your closets, things that would help us in general, but it is also continually communicating. This is our plan. We hope to open this way. Here are the COVID standards, because the safety requirements have continually changed, even for us to be in the office. And so if we're remote, it's hard for us to work, but our volunteers. So finding small ways that they could work outside that kept them safe, delivering food, picking up groceries, and the work that they really want to do is, we had to train a whole group of volunteers, or retired teachers, to do GED, and our ESL teachers, plus our financial coaches, how to use Zoom and get Zoom. So we took we had to take a month to train and how to do that. So people are learning new skills, trying to pivot. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think they appreciate the efforts because it does change. And we have just started bringing in volunteers, but we have a certain number that can be in our facility at a time. We have a whole temperature check system, new protocols, but that takes time to get in place. And it's a change for volunteers who've been there for 3 decades. Why do I have to come in this door? Why do I have to wear a mask? Why do I have to wear it? Am I wearing my mask the right way? Where's that? How many times do I have to disinfect the hands? And we're learning this. And you hear from the volunteers, and Nisha and Frida, I just want it to be back to normal. I just want to be normal, and it is never going back. And that is really hard for volunteers who are so passionate and committed to the organization and the families. But the families are saying the same thing. We want it to go back too. We want to see you. We want to engage. It is a very challenging time with volunteers right now.
Amen. Nisha, anything?
We're doing all of those same things, and I think Holly hit the nail on the head. The way that we have been able to engage with our volunteers has been the virtual learning opportunities for supporting our kids, and even for our moms. We shifted our Monday night programming to just being virtual, so people can still pour into our families. I think that is really what our volunteers have valued the most. So looking at how ways that we can give them that serve the purpose of why they are getting involved. And so all of our programming, from the Monday night classes to the virtual support for our students. We also even added some alumni programming. So for those moms who have already successfully been through our program, but because of COVID are experiencing some level of a setback, Professionally, we added some workforce training. So that was a great way for us to involve our corporate partners, all those that have volunteered and have maybe a skill set that they want to share. They can do so via Zoom and help out moms in that way. So I think it was about creating more ways for them to virtually give back. But yeah, I will definitely echo what Holly said. It was all about the Zoom and getting everybody comfortable contributing there. But it was people could still get that personal feeling of seeing faces, unmasked faces. So yeah.
I know, unmasked faces, exactly. Frida, you have a lot of seniors who volunteer in the hospitals as well, so.
We do, and they're not there, and so, you know, we've gone back to discharges are by the nurse or the caregiver that's been taking care of that patient. There are no volunteers in the hospital. In fact, just so you know, I can't go to Northside Hospital and go in the front door.
Yeah.
I don't have business there that day. So, you know, they limit the visitors. That's for my protection as well as the patients and the caregivers. And so there's no volunteers right now.
Yeah, and that's totally understandable. We want to keep our families safe, and our families
Absolutely
are not just the people at home, they're the people in our offices, and they're the people that we work with. And so I want to thank all of you for keeping your family safe. And for joining us on this call. I would also tell y'all, you need to scroll through the chat function to see all of the amazing supportive comments. There are a lot of people on this call who value what you're doing and are thanking you and who are offering to help. So I want to make sure you guys know that, because I couldn't possibly, I've never seen this many questions for any seminar we've done, and we've done more than 100 since this started. So
it's women, it's women.
It is women and Alan.
Yay.
Women and Alan.
Oh, I see Matt McClure on there. I see Matt McClure from Synovus. He's
Okay,
the male.
We've got some impressive men who have joined with us on this call. As we close out today's event, I really want to thank our all-star lineup of panelists. Of course, Frida Hartage with Northside Hospital, Nisha Mason at the Drake House, and Holly York with North Fulton Community Charities, along with our moderator, Christy Cross with Cozy Comfy. Christy, thank you. We can't offer great programs like this without our sponsors, and I'd like to thank Verizon for their naming sponsorship. Terry, thank you very much. And your sponsorship, of course, over this entire Women Influencing Business events that we do during the year, along with LexisNexis Risk Solutions and Synovus. I especially want to thank everybody who joined us today. The next event in the Verizon Women Influencing Business Leadership Series is scheduled for Thursday, September 10th. If you haven't figured out the pattern yet, it's every Thursday at 10 in September. We are really excited to welcome Dr. Vonda Wright with Northside Hospital for an exciting session entitled Becoming a CEO Parent. Homeschool and time management tips so that you can thrive during COVID-19 and beyond. Please register online if you have not already, and we will see you for that event. Two other calendar events coming up in September. One, we are going to be doing a program with our Tech 400 group called Tracing Technologies that will change the future, and that is a webinar on September 17th, as well as the Wellstar monthly event. We have our monthly luncheon on September 29th, which is going to focus on transportation from the Ports Authority and from the cars on the road. So on both ends of that. And of course, our Chamber's annual Golf and Tennis Classic, which is our major fundraiser, will be held on Tuesday, October 6th. Thank you to Northside Hospital for being our presenting sponsor for that. Please sign up online to play tennis. Our golf spots are sold out except for sponsorships. So please, if you want to sponsor, talk to me or anyone at the office about that. And nonprofits, if you want to participate, this is a really great way to market your organization with a T-box display as well. This and all of the chamber events can be found on gnfcc.com. I hope that all of you have a safe and relaxing Labor Day weekend. It is a long weekend, so please go enjoy, get a little R&R, and we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye, everybody.